gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February the 2nd, 2023. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day presented by LifeWallet, where the time is now to take charge of your personal health. Matt, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your protest yesterday. I explained to everybody in your fan club that was obviously very upset by your lack of presence, that you were protesting the atraditional National Signing Day that yesterday was. And in our decades of covering the Miami Hurricanes, it was the first National Signing Day that we've ever experienced where there was like nothing. There was no signees to report. It was a totally nothing burger on National Signing Day for the Miami Hurricanes. You didn't like it very much, and you refused to get up at 5 a.m. and do the show, which I understood. You know, I marched onward, grabbed Azubi, and said, Azubi, it's you and me, man. And Azubi did a great job, and we made it through the show. But we're happy to have you back this morning. We really are. And we got a lot to talk about because you had a very, very, very busy day yesterday pulling data.
My favorite thing to do.
Like, we've been arguing about this transfer portal for months, and you said, you know what, Gary, I am going to, for once and for all, I am going to prove you wrong. And you like disappeared for the entire day and emerged from your cave with this like massive assortment of data about the transfer portal that you have weaved together for a story on the website today that I think people are going to really enjoy. I'm not sure it's going to have the lasting effect that you expected because I am going to come back at you during the show about it. But, you know, I took the points that were made by your data, and I do think they are legit. And I'm going to get more into this, but I don't think that it's apples to oranges. I mean, I think you're comparing apples to oranges, you know, in some of those situations. You're not comparing apples to apples. We'll talk about it more. But first, let me give you the mic. I'm going to be very disciplined here, and I don't even need to put tape face on this morning. I am going to be very disciplined, and I'm going to let you talk a little bit about your day of research yesterday that ended with the story that's on the website this morning.
Well, first of all, I hope everyone enjoyed Azubi's positive energy. You will be getting none of that from me. That is just not that's not my strength, not my forte, unfortunately. So sorry, everybody. But, you know, I woke up yesterday after 5 a.m. and I decided to do something which I regretted 8 hours later when I still wasn't done with it. I mean, this was the most massive single story project I think I've ever written, quite honestly. I mean, I thought it wouldn't take that long. I don't know why I thought that. I mean, if I told you what it was when I thought of it, I think any fan out there would tell me that I'm an idiot. Like, of course, it's going to take you forever. I decided I was going to look at the top 25 teams in the final rankings, and for each one of them, figure out over the last 3 years, the portal just became a free portal in 2021. So for the last 3 years, 21, 22, 23, how many incoming portal transfers did each of these top 25 programs take? How many left the program in the portal in each of those 3 years? Tally them all up, then make a list out of the top 25 of the differential. And every single one of the top 25, by the way, lost more than they gained in terms of transfers, which is normal. It's why there's so many student athletes in the transfer portal that have no home, because pretty much every program, you know, they just don't have space. There's an 85 limit, and there's no room for these guys. You know, it's a shame, but you know, the sort of the mantra of college coaches now, if you have a program that's halfway decent, is after a couple of years, if you're not good enough for us, goodbye. We're going to bring in a freshman to replace you, and then if you're not good enough, like, who else is going to take you, really? You know. So anyway, so I went about doing that, and then I ranked the top programs in terms of the fewest enrollees, fewest transfer enrollees that came in each year and over the 3-year period, da 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 da. And then I wrote a whole analysis. I would urge anybody who has no job and has been fired recently to read the story. If you have a job, I would say don't even bother, because it's the longest Pulitzer Prize winning piece I've ever written. And that's not the Pulitzer you're thinking of. It's George Pulitzer. It's a guy I knew back from high school. He gives me a prize once in a while. So anyway, the bottom line is, should I say the bottom line, or do people have to read for hours and hours? The bottom line is that most of these programs, virtually all of them, are doing what Miami did and is doing, which is taking, between 7 and 10 transfers, maybe an average of 7 or 8 a year or something like that over the last 3 years. I do have the averages in there, and kicking out a lot of their players and, things like that. When you look at the raw data for the most transfers out, Miami's right in the middle. They're tied for 10th out of the top 25 teams for the most transfers out. So not at the top, not at the bottom, sort of right in the middle. And when you look at the most transfer arrivals, they're tied for 8th with Mississippi State. So again, a little towards the upper end, but nothing crazy. So Miami is not an outlier in terms of Mario Cristobal and, for the 1 year prior, Manny Diaz, taking an extraordinary amount of transfers on average over 3 years, or having a tremendous amount of attrition to the transfer portal. They're both, sort of a little on the higher end in terms of taking transfers, a little on the higher end in people leaving, but not too much of a standard deviation from the mean. So to me, the most interesting part of the analysis is there was clearly, to me, 4 teams that have decided to basically say F you to the transfer portal. And those 4 teams are Alaska State, Southern Hawaii. No, those 4 teams are Alabama, Ohio State, some team called Clemson, and Georgia. That's it. Those are the only 4 teams that, if you look at the fewest transfer arrivals, Clemson in 3 years had 2 of them. Okay, that's less than 1 a year that they're taking. Georgia had 7. That's basically 2 transfers a year they're taking. Okay, Ohio State had 9. That's 3 transfers a year they're taking on average. Alabama had 11. Okay, the only other team that's up there is Notre Dame. Notre Dame only took 9, and Notre Dame's been sort of up and down. But my point is this: the best coaches in the country, and I would think some people might think Notre Dame has one of them. This isn't just in a vacuum.
Marcus Freeman, one of the best coaches in the country.
Well, who was the coach for the last 3 years there?
Well, he's been there, I think, 2 now.
Well, last year. This is a 3-year window, right? Yeah. So, and I break it down by year. You want to know Notre Dame's numbers when Brian Kelly was still there, or can I move on with that? Like, it's not
important.
No, this is not a Notre Dame.
I just had to poke holes in something.
Yeah, so. Great. My point is, forget Notre Dame. The other 4 programs are certainly, over the last decade, I don't think anyone would argue, those are the programs that have had the most success. And those are 4 of the 5 programs, with the other perhaps an outlier in Notre Dame, but certainly the 4 major programs where those coaches, who are probably the most respected, if not among the most respected coaches in the country in terms of being just really smart about how they build championship teams, they said, we do not want the transfer portal except in emergencies. That's what they said. Okay. And I clearly show also in this story how the transfer portal has helped, right? And I use a couple of examples. FSU and Tennessee, there was one other school, but FSU and Tennessee for sure. Miami can follow that path, okay? FSU, tons of transfers, turned around a losing team into a really good team last year, okay? Tennessee, the same thing. Tennessee, losing program, guy comes in, takes a ton of transfers, and it's obviously a top-ranked team. But we don't know what happens moving forward, okay? Because they've had 1 winning season, and they've been taking transfers for 3 years. It's not like this was just 1 year of transfers and bam, we're great. Will the program continue to be at the level of a Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State? Can it be sustained through the portal? The only example that I used in the story to say, well, maybe, maybe not. If you remember a year ago, right, Michigan State, everyone's like, wow, This is how you use the portal. Look at Michigan State. What did they win? 10 games, 11 games, whatever it was. They just turned everything around, took a million transfer portal guys. This is the answer. Fantastic season last year. This year, they're 5-7. That is troubling for a program that's saying, let's just do the portal every year and try to fill in gaps with recruiting, which is what you have to do when you're taking an average of 10 or 11 transfer guys a year, because you're talking about 30 to 40 transfers on your roster every 3-year cycle. Only leaves you half a roster for recruits. Anyway, I've talked long enough. You can share your thoughts.
No, I want you to talk. I mean, you put a lot of time into this story, and it's really good work, everybody. Seriously, I'm not making fun of Matt this morning. This is really, really good work. There's just one issue with the overall thesis, and there is a pattern. There's a distinct pattern that the best teams in college football are not relying on the transfer portal. Okay, it is undeniable. Okay, but here's the thing: when you're Miami and you're Mario Cristobal and you walk into this absolute disaster.
By the way, I won't cut you off, but remind me to tell you about the Oregon numbers Mario had there after we finish this.
Yeah, which is going to support my point a little bit. But when you inherit the disaster that he inherited and you are trying to build the roster as quickly as possible, you have to rely on the transfer portal more than if you've had a top 3 recruiting class for the last 8 years and your roster's already built and you're competing for the national title every year, i.e. Alabama, now Georgia. You don't need the transfer portal. Your roster's been built up. You've got top recruits piled up on top of each other year after year after year. So the transfer portal is not a lot of use to you. So I think that's why the stats are shaping up the way that they are. But it doesn't mean, and I've been yelling with you about this for weeks, it doesn't mean that Miami is doing something wrong by taking more transfers, because what they are trying to do is do both. Jay Collette, this is for you. They are trying to walk and chew gum, okay? They are trying to build the roster for the current season to try to win more than 5 games. And they are trying to build the program for the long haul with a top-tier recruiting class, number 6 in the country this year. I'm sure Mario is not very happy with that. I'm sure he wanted to be in the top 5. Things didn't work out with some highly rated recruits. It is what it is, you know. But the bottom line is I like what they are doing in Coral Gables. I think they are walking and chewing gum and doing both. And, you know, maybe, you know, it might seem like a little bit of an over-reliance on what Matt calls transfers as opposed to free agents.
It's called transfer psychosis. That's my name for it.
Yeah, but I think it's a necessary evil. Like, they had to go get Javion Cohen. They had to go get Matt Lee. And, you know, the funny thing is Javion Cohen walked into Nick Saban and, you know, and he told these guys at Alabama he wanted a $500,000 NIL deal and law school tuition paid for his girlfriend, who I hope he's going to marry if he's tying her into his NIL deal. And Alabama told him to get lost. That's how he ended up at Miami, where John Ruiz didn't blink at. I'm assuming, you know, that's what he probably had the deal they ended up having to make to land Javion Cohen to fortify the offensive line for this season. So Matt, you know, I appreciate all the work you did.
I have a few more
I'm
thoughts.
not sure it changes the reality of what we have been arguing about for months. I like Miami's use of the transfer portal.
I think Miami could have gotten away with taking 3 or 4 transfer portal guys this year, and Javion and Matt Lee would be 2 of them. But here's my concern. I don't want Miami to become UCLA, and hear me out on that, okay? Because it sounds weird to say it, but like Chip Kelly at UCLA, right? He had 2 teams that went 4-8 and 3-4 in 2019 and 2020, okay? He took 8 transfers in 21, 13 in 22. He's taken another 13 already. He turned that program into an 8-4 team and a 9-4 team. But my concern is,
what was it before he did that?
Right,
it was a 4-win team.
Right.
So what are they supposed to do? Keep winning 4 games?
Because I don't think you can win national championships in the portal. That's just my feeling. TCU tried to do it.
They're not at that.
Tried to do it.
UCLA is not competing for the national title. UCLA is trying to survive right now.
Correct. And that's what I don't want Miami to do. My whole thing with Miami is, and I hope Mario looks at this data, because when he was at Oregon, he tried to do, and he was doing what Nick Saban's doing, what Kirby Smart's doing. He took, I think, I have to look it up, like 1 or 2 portal guys. each of the 2 years he was there. Like nothing. He took like nobody. Should I try to find it here, or you want to look it up while I'm talking? Let me see where Oregon is. Hold on a sec.
I can find it.
11, 12, I'm almost there. 14, 15, Oregon. Okay. So in 2021, he didn't take a single transfer and 12 guys left. Okay. And then obviously wasn't there in 2022. And in 2020, I think they took one, but there was no free transfers then. So the 1 year he had a chance to really say, hey, do I believe in the transfer portal or not? He said, I don't believe in the transfer portal. I don't think the transfer portal can do anything for me.
Because he had good teams that were winning.
Just,
but think about it. He was winning Pac-12
right.
titles out there,
right.
And he was stacking recruiting classes, and he was putting up the best recruiting classes in Oregon school history. He didn't need the transfer portal.
Here's the thing, and UCLA found this out and is finding it out. How do you fix a vicious cycle of constantly taking transfer portal guys who are just filling gaps? Because it's hard to get true freshmen who are developed when you don't get that many of them, because you've taken, in UCLA's case, 30 transfers in 3 years. Like, that's 30 true freshmen that can be developed. That's what Mario wanted to do at Oregon and was doing at Oregon. It's what he's not doing at Miami. Like, those are just numbers.
But I answered your question a few minutes ago. How do you do it if you're UCLA? You walk and you chew gum. But the problem is that
but you can't, because you've lost those spots. You've lost 30
Chip Kelly. No, the problem isn't the spots, because you always have.
The problem is, of course, the whole thing.
You always have that.
If there's no 85 limit, take 50 transfers. Like, who cares? There's a limit. Of course, that's the problem.
Every team has fat that it can run off, but the problem is that Chip Kelly, he cannot recruit anywhere close to the level of Mario Cristobal.
Nobody.
So he has a very, very difficult time walking and chewing gum. Mario Cristobal, he can go land Javion Cohen. He can go land Matt Lee. But he also can recruit Samson Okinola, and he also can recruit Francis Mayagoa. He is the epitome of walking and chewing gum.
He can recruit Javion Cohen. You literally just said Javion would have stayed at Alabama if they gave him the money, but apparently it's the Mario magic. Mario's a great high school recruiter. Transfers are about money, man. Javion Cohen would probably have rather stayed at Alabama. I'm sorry to say the truth, everybody. He wanted, like Gary said, the NIL deal, which is how you get free agents. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how it is now. But don't go turn it into Mario Cristobal was an amazing recruiting job for a guy who wanted a money grab. That's ridiculous. Mario's great at bonding with families, bonding with recruits, landing top recruits, combine that with an NIL deal. He's going to have top 5, top 10 classes every single year, but he keeps taking, free agents are fine. And I said you could take 3 or 4 free agents a year, but the other 8 guys that he's going to wind up taking in the portal, that's just not for me. And he did it last year, and that's not for me. I'd rather have recruits or save spots for 2024 and just take seniors that are gone, something like that. That's how I feel with a great recruiter on the staff. That's how I feel you should do it. That's how you don't walk and chew gum, because you can't, it's easy to walk and chew gum, right? The hard thing is the opposite of that.
I thought they were pretty disciplined. I thought they were disciplined. When they went into this, I think they ended up with 8 transfers. I thought they would have had 13, 14, 15 of them.
They're going to try to get more.
And they might still get a few more later on in May when the transfer portal reopens for business. All right. But anyway, everybody, Matt put a lot of time and effort into it. Please, please, please go to CaneSport.com. Make sure to read this real in-depth look at the transfer portal and how all the different top teams around the country are using it to different levels of effectiveness. And I think you'll find it very interesting. Okay, we do have some other stuff to talk about today, but first, let's hear from our friends at LifeWallet. And I think we'll go with Nigel Pack because of the way he packed the basket with those 3-pointers late in the game on Tuesday night against Virginia Tech to help the Canes bail out of there with a victory.
Hi, I'm Nigel Pack, and when I decided to come to Miami, I knew I had to pack, including my life wallet. But you know what else I'm gonna pack this upcoming season? I'm gonna pack the house. But today, I'm gonna stand here and make another trade.
The feed to Pack. He throws another. Give it to him. His third from the corner pocket. When he was persistent,
Never leave your home without your life wallet. Saving time, saving lives.
All right, man. He was special Tuesday night.
Hey,
Down.
But by the way, I want to, I know you're going to talk about content, but everyone wants to know about the offensive coordinator, and I got to say something about that. So, first of all, it's kind of funny. Some people are throwing names out there, like maybe this guy's been interviewed. I'm hearing maybe this guy was interviewed. Like nobody, honestly, anybody who actually knows isn't saying it, okay? And they won't say it. But what bothers me with the whole search is the perception of it, because last time, you and I both know that Mario did offer the job to a bunch of people that didn't wind up coming. We all know that Gaddis wasn't the first choice. And now the perception, as this keeps dragging on, is that people are not seeing this as this elite level job, which is a shame, because, this is how Mario operates. Mario likes to operate in secrecy. He doesn't mind letting one person think they're going to get the job and not give it to him. Like Mario is not a normal person, okay? For any fan out there who just thinks this is the same way everyone else runs coaching searches, he's like weird with this stuff. Like he doesn't mind letting 5 different people think they're getting a job at the same time. And then stuff leaks like, oh, this guy, go change this guy's profile on Wiki. He's going to get the job, or whatever the heck's happening. So even when you hear from a source that this guy thinks he's getting a job at Miami to be the offensive coordinator, I would just urge everybody, take a step back. Mario is a little weird with how he does these searches, and they do take forever. And I don't like that, because I want sort of to have an offense in place before spring practice. Like that would be a nice thing to have.
You think that would be? You think that would be a good idea?
If Mario's the offensive coordinator,
get a month, man.
The receivers could just stay home. Okay, if Mario's the offensive coordinator, the receivers just stay in your dorm rooms all day.
It's February 2nd. Spring practice doesn't start till March 4th. What are you stressing about? Mario's got time.
You do know that the players like to get the plays and study them in advance. They're allowed to do that, believe it or not, before the first practice. You do know that.
He told the quarterback recruit last week that it would be about what, 6 to 8 days that he'd have a coordinator.
Let me tell you something.
That was last Friday.
I had a luncheon with Randy Shannon and the rest of the reporters once, and I was just talking to Randy. I thought he hated me. It turns out he hated me more than I even realized, because I told him I was playing on a 7-on-7 football team, and he drew up a play for me to run on the defense, like somehow thinking we ran 4-4 speeds, like switching this guy and that guy. He drew on a napkin, first of all. And then we tried to run the defense, and I broke my ankle. So, it was not good. But at least he gave us some plays. Like Miami, the offensive players right now have no plays. There's no playbook. I had more plays from Randy Shannon on my little 7-on-7 defensive team with a bunch of, guys that look like this running around than this team does right now. And that's not okay with me a month before spring practice. I'm sorry. Mario, hire the freaking guy. Let's get it done. Like, that's just me. I really would like to have this offense start functioning correctly.
Well, I mean, if the timeline was a good one, and it cracks me up, but we got some guys on our message board that want to hold them to the exact second. It was not a hard deadline. It was a ballpark estimate to a recruit of a timeline that he expected to hire a new offensive coordinator. But
listen, you do know he's. I mean, let's face it. I think he's been turned down, Gary. Okay, I know that there's different people that he would like to have. And unfortunately, it just doesn't always go on the timeline you want.
I don't know if that's true, Matt. I don't know either way. But to me, I've only heard one name that I personally feel could have some legs, and that is Paul Chryst, the former Wisconsin head coach, former Pitt head coach.
That's out of the bag. That's the guy I was talking about on the message boards when everyone's like, who's the one you've heard, Matt?
Well, I know that they have a lot of respect for each other. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and Paul Chryst is not working right now. So, it would not shock me if it's him. I just don't know that he's, where he is on the passing game. And that's the only thing that, makes me wonder, maybe Mario will look to the NFL, bring in an NFL quarterbacks coach that's ready to be a coordinator. I'm sure Alonzo is helping him quite a bit with this, and with his network in the NFL can, figure out the guys to interview and things like that. So with recruiting over, Mario's on this full time now. And I'm sure that's why that timeline for a possible announcement at the end of this week was brought up in those conversations.
And by the way, I was at Paul Chryst's last game, because as those of you who watch this
show,
way more often than you watch, way more often than you should know. My son goes there. And yeah, that offense, I watched whenever I could watch their games, I did the last couple of years. That offense was terrible. And I know it's not necessarily Paul Chris' fault, but they didn't bring in a lot of real elite talent. The quarterback play was not good. There is another Miami connection. I don't know.
He didn't recruit very well once he got the head job at Wisconsin.
Right. Do you know who the head medical guy was over at Wisconsin with Paul Chris in his early years, by the way?
No, who?
Young man named Lee Kaplan.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Paul Chris he knows Mario very well. He knows the team physician very well. I bet there's a bunch of connections there that we don't even know about. But listen, I mean, he's a head coach. He's been a head coach. He's been a coordinator. Like, he has a great resume. He shares.
He's a good football coach. I just don't know where. And he's very aligned with Mario on the running game and physical football.
Correct. And
I don't know what he brings to the table in the passing game.
Oh, see, that's the thing. Yeah. So I don't know.
But Matt, like, if you do go in that direction, you can maybe bring in, I don't know, like a James Coley or something,
right? As a passing game
coordinator, and they can work together.
Yeah, because
you never know.
The issue is when you have Mario, who loves to just run the football behind a really physical offensive line, and yeah, he says he wants a power spread, but let's face it, he thinks a spread offense. He thinks of a spread offense the same way that I think of like a large stone crab. Like, it's very rare that I actually see it, and if you add another voice to the room, that's the same thing. Where really, let's run first, establish the run, establish the run. I just get concerned that the Josiah Traders of the world and these other guys are not going to be thrilled with joining the offense. And I think Miami desperately needs these guys. I mean, we're going to be writing some stuff with the four of us staffers, talking about sort of the offense in the next couple of days. And one common theme where Josh Gaddis maybe didn't do a great job was, well, there was many areas, but one specifically is when you see guys like Hakeem Williams and Brandon Inniss didn't even give Miami a look. That's the truth.
Because they didn't feel they could be developed by Josh Gaddis.
Yeah, or in that offense. Like, they were never even interested based on what Miami was running. And you're going to run into the same problem with Chris if he's here. They're going to look at the offenses he's run. They're going to look at his philosophy, and Mario's philosophy is going to be that much harder to get these guys. And the Miami area has such premier speed, elite athletes that if you can't understand that you need to run an offense similar to what Rhett Lashley did, and you could argue Rhett Lashley was the best coordinator here in the last 12 to 15 years, maybe longer.
It was a mirage, though, Matt.
Huh?
They didn't win. Those offenses put up a lot of yards and they build stats, but they don't necessarily win games on a consistent basis.
Right. Well, that's because they put the defense in tough situations because they score in a hurry. But you know what? I used to, believe it or not, I used to be an Eagles fan back when Jerome Brown was playing and Seth Joyner. And I mean, you go down the line. Watching those games, their offense was awful. I actually I felt better about it when the defense was on the field. They would win games just by getting a turnover and a field goal, And if Miami can have a defense like that, who cares if the defense is on the field a lot? They have depth upon depth. Let the defense be on the field a lot. What's the big harm of that? If you have a great offense that scores in a hurry and your defense is just as good, all it means is you're winning by 70 points instead of 10. Why are we scared to play defense all of a sudden at Miami? I don't understand that. Oh, the offense is going to score too fast if we have a hurry-up spread offense. I don't like that.
All right. Well, with a quiet signing day yesterday, we also are taking a look at holes that now remain in the Miami roster. Not the coaching staff, but the roster. And we also take a look back at the signing class that once ranked as one of the nation's best. So you guys can enjoy those stories. Matt, let's talk a little bit about the holes in the roster story.
I wanted to write that story. Steven stole that story from me. I was going to write there was holes in every position. Instead, Steven just picked a couple of positions. Come on, Steven. Be more negative.
He picked out 3: wide receiver, interior defensive line, and safety. Now, safety, you're thinking Cam Kinchins. They've made him an All-American. Miami's in great shape. But they're not necessarily really in that great of shape. I mean, James Williams needs to be a linebacker. You're looking at Brian Ballum and Caleb Spencer, who have not done a lot in college football. So I like the choice of safety to be in that story. Defensive tackle, I think, was another good choice. You're hoping that Leonard Taylor and that he has a good season this year. It's time. Jared Harrison Hunt, you're hoping that he does a good job this year. But there's no guarantees with either one of them. I would not call either one of them a franchise level defensive tackle. So
so you're going with 3-4 defense, huh?
And I'm still no. There's other guys, obviously. I'm not trying to mention.
But I mean, how are you gonna put James Williams at linebacker and take Wesley Bastains off the field? You're gonna put him in the slot against 5'8" receivers?
No, I play Francisco Maigo, I play Wesley Bastains, and I play James Williams.
So you get rid of the star.
He could be a star. He could be a star.
He can't.
But you get him out of safety.
He's 6'5". He's not gonna be able to guard 5'7" quick guys like that. That's not his thing now.
But anyway, there's not a lot of safety. Okay, there really isn't, and I like the choice of that position. And lastly, wide receiver was the other one. I still do not believe, Matt, that there is a number one wide receiver in this program.
What? Shocking. Is that like the breaking news on the CNN headline? Breaking news: Gary Ferman still doesn't think there's a number one receiver. Thanks for that.
Yeah. All right. Well,
yeah, that's a shock to me. I had no idea there wasn't a number one receiver on the roster.
So anyway, you got those stories are on the website today, and let's see. There's also a feature.
Ignore me. You don't even care.
I'm totally ignoring you. There's also a feature with Cane's baseball star Yo-Yo Morales, who's a projected first-round draft pick, and first he has his eyes firmly set on helping the Miami Hurricanes get back to the College World Series. This morning, we also wrap up our CaneSport 30 for 30 series, where we've been ranking the top 30 Miami Hurricanes with 30 or more reps. Who do you think's number one on that list? Should we tell him, Matt?
I think everyone knows.
Yeah, it's Cam Kinchens. Okay, now, listen. I'm going to probably rub somebody the wrong way here. I love Cam Kinchens. I love what he brings to the table. I think he's a very good player. To me, he's not an All-American yet in reality. And I think he's got a good margin to grow this next season and become way better than what he was last year when they did name him an All-American at the end of the year. Matt, your thoughts on that?
He's an All-American worker for sure.
Yes.
That's his secret. His secret isn't he's the biggest, strongest, fastest guy out there. Ed Reed was never the biggest, fastest, strongest guy out there.
Yeah, but there's no comparison between Cam Kinchens of today and Ed Reed.
Of course not. But the comparison there is that Ed Reed worked. He worked himself into what he became. He studied film relentlessly, and obviously Ed was a much different leader than Cam. Cam's relatively quiet. Ed is not, obviously. But there is a similarity between the two of them in their knowledge of the game, in their instincts, and how they're always around the ball. The 99-yard interception return that Cam had, that's what Ed Reed made a habit of doing. No, Cam Kinchens is not Ed Reed. I probably shouldn't even mention them in the same sentence. But if you're just looking at them as workers, I will put Cam Kinchens against Ed Reed, believe it or not. Cam Kinchens does not leave the film room, and it's why he is so darn good in games. He knows what's coming just from formations sometimes. If everyone on that team worked as hard as Cam Kinchens worked, this team would have won 10 games last year. I'm not even kidding. It wasn't about they were terrible players. It was that they were lackadaisical at times. They just seemed like they didn't care. They weren't working hard enough. They felt like they were overworked. I mean, don't complain. Just get in the film room and get it right, because that's what Cam Kinchens did. And Gary says there's another level he can get to, apparently. I'm not sure there is. I think what you see from him is what you get. He's not going to have gained 20 pounds of muscle and gotten 0.1 seconds faster.
Do you think he plays at an All-American level?
I think he does instinctually. and work-wise and in the right spot to make plays. And that's all you need to do to be a college All-American, Gary. 6 interceptions. I can see him getting that again easily, if not more. He's always around the ball, and it's because he knows what plays they're running and what to do, and he studies the quarterback's eyes and the quarterback's tendencies. He knows where they go with the ball. He breaks on it sometimes before they throw it, if you watch the film. I mean, he just knows what's happening out there, and it gives him, like, if you run a 4.5 or 4.6, he's the equivalent of a 4.2 or 4.3 because he's already on the move to where he's supposed to be, whereas the 4.5, the 4.3 guy is a little late to start moving. So he plays like a 4.2 guy simply because he's already starting to be there before another guy will even try to get there, if that makes sense.
I just don't listen.
He's 100% an All-American. No doubt.
And I'm not
about it.
knocking him at all. He's a great kid. He works really hard. I think that he can play at an All-American level potentially this year. But when you give up
consensus,
when you have coverage busts, mental coverage
I'm the negative guy. Like, what's happening?
I'm saying when you have coverage busts,
opposite day.
When you have coverage busts that directly lead to 2 losses, which he did, I don't feel that's All-American level play. But look, we are naming him the number 1 player on the Miami Hurricanes. He is deserving of that. I think personally that he has another level that he can get to, and hopefully he does this year, and hopefully he does not have coverage busts this year that result in lost football games.
Listen, this is like opposite day where Gary's negative and I'm positive, but just for
negative.
I'm
just keeping it real.
Yeah, that's what you do. Just for those of you with children out there, here's what I recommend, because I did this with my children. You say to your child, "Hey, do you want a cookie?" And they say, "Yeah," and you say, "Oh, I forgot, it's opposite day." That's always good with the kids. The kids love that. I always used to do that. That was a lot of fun. I was the best parent.
So while you're at it, before we go, any restaurants everybody should go to?
Oh my God. I went to Dirty French, which, let's face it, it was a little dirty and it wasn't French. So I don't understand the name at all because it's a steakhouse, So just call it like moderately dirty steakhouse. Like that should be the name of it if you're going to name it. They also have a dress code that it says dress appropriately, which I don't know what that means. And then it said like no shorts or something like that. Also make sure you drive like a Porsche or a Lamborghini because when you drive up in my car, they're not going to park it for you. You have to just go find your own park. They just say go find a spot in the street somewhere. But as for the food itself, it was an interesting place. They play 40 songs on a loop, 80 songs, really, really loudly, which is great when you go with your in-laws because you don't have to talk to them because they can't hear you across the table with all the 80s music blaring. I would highly recommend not getting the tomahawk steak, which for some reason a family member of mine ordered, and it was $175.
I was going to say, you would recommend going with your in-laws because they'll pick up the check.
Listen, well, I wasn't sure if I was paying. I was concerned I was paying. So I ordered a wedge salad and a piece of salmon. That was it. And then I look around and people are ordering like Dover sole for $130 and this tomahawk. It was a tomahawk Wagyu, no less, okay, for $185. I mean, I will tell you the bill came and a certain member of my family who I thought was going to be paying somehow decided that was the right time to go to the bathroom. Classic move, like genius move. I'm like, why didn't I think of that? And then, my wife's staring at me like, are we paying or whatever? So I picked up the bill and I looked at it and it was $1,200. And I put it down and I'm like mouthing like, I don't think we should pay the bill. So my main recommendation for everybody is like, if you really want to get the tomahawk steak, just make sure you run a 4.4 in the 40 because after you eat it, you're going to need to be able to get the hell out of there in a hurry. If they chase you for not paying the bill, like you need to be able to get out of there, and you're probably going to be at a 4.5 with this tomahawk steak inside of you at that point. So 4.4 speed if you order the tomahawk. Otherwise, just get the wedge salad and leave. That's my recommendation. And I'm not going to tell you who ended up paying. I don't want to talk about it.
All right, but who owns a piece of that?
Yeah, I do.
Too, right?
I sure do. It's the Carbone family. Yeah, you know what? So you better pay your bill because what is that? It's like the Miami Mafia, right?
Yeah. All right, that's gonna conclude our Good Morning CaneSport for today. Thank you so much for starting your morning out with us. If you like the show, like our YouTube channel, hit your subscribe button, hit your like button. It helps us with the algorithms at YouTube. If you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please do come on over to the website and join our community of Canes fans. We don't think you'll be sorry. It's a fun place to hang out. Tons of content, as you know, every day. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you so much for joining us again today. We'll see you next time, everybody.